All right, welcome to the Sci-Fi Express Lane. I'm actually on my way to see Emancipation with Will Smith, directed by Antoine Fuqua. All right, and I had talked about, what it meant to see a slave movie with black people working on it, directing it. And I know we had Nate Parker's Birth of a Nation, and that was reeked with controversy. It seems like, something always happens. I don't think with Emancipation Will plan to self-sabotage this movie, but I don't think future Will Smith movies will suffer the slap backlash, the backlash from Slapgate, the way this movie has. I think this movie also is plagued with this slave movie narrative fatigue, this frustration with seeing and having movies about slavery that are defeatist. Nobody wants to see, if you're team to the L, nobody want to keep seeing that. That's why when Jewish people make movies about the Holocaust, it's always catching some Holocaust perpetrator in the modern world and bringing them to justice. They'll never have movies like, over and over. I mean, Lisa and Anne Frank, she gets away, or some, the ending is different. Man, this is story of struggle and survival. But it ain't, whippings and killings and snatching people up and taking them away from, that's some defeatist stuff. That's where I hope they do something to Kindred. But anyway, I will say, as a black person, there is a special feeling that you get when you write a story set in slavery. First of all, you ain't writing no defeated story, because you are a legacy of the people who championed it, right? I remember when they joked and said, Killmonger said, my relatives, jumped off the boat. You're like, no, you didn't. No, they didn't, because if they did, you wouldn't be here. So none of those relatives jumped off the boat. But I will say, there's a rebellious survival element that is in our DNA from having ancestors who survived the most horrible experience in Earth history, right? There you got it. That's all I'm gonna say. What chattel slavery was horrific. And so it's in my DNA to write a different story than the descendants of those who perpetrated this worst event in human history, in world history, in the history of the earth. Okay? So there is something that's different that comes out. I know it and I recognize it as joy. When I'm slitting the throat, literally in one of the scenes in my story set in slavery, there's a feeling of exhilaration that I get when I write the kill scenes in other movies. It's a momentary high. It feels good to write a kill scene. This vampire, this space person, this gold digger killer, they handled it. Yeah, but it's a linear, it's a linear feeling, right? It's just something right back and forth at that moment. It did you a crime, you killed him. But when you're writing a killing set in slavery as a descendant of people that went through that horrible stuff, it's magical. It's magical. It feels like retribution, right? It's real as any type of fictional story feels. You go back into those times. You go back and live those experiences. And is this TV show coming up, Kindred. And, for whatever it's worth, I would write different stories with the same scenarios that Octavia Butler wrote. You know, I don't know why we write different, but if I had moments to go back in time, I would not imagine me doing some of the things that her characters does. So in Kindred, which is coming up, and I guess I'm spoiling it. This is a book and it's a comic book, so you can't really spoil those things too much. And plus, I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know how they're gonna do it. I didn't see the TV show, so I don't know how they're gonna tell it different from the book and the comic book. And the comic book is what I just read recently, but you know, she was overwhelmed with confusion as to what to do in these scenarios, and you know, it took her a minute to be able to argue these points, to adjust and counter the perpetrators in slavery. And to me, I mean, not having even seen Kindred or read it, if you would have asked me before I read that and introduced me to the scenario, I would definitely do something totally different. Now, I know it's hard to live in slavery in the South, in the land, and you know, I need to find drinking water. There's a whole lot of things that I would need to know, but I certainly imagine myself going back and being some sort of serial killer, you know. I don't know. That's just me. Now, she did draw her scenario the way she drew it, and it was really hard to get out of, so I'm with it. But me, I'm expecting Antoine Fuqua to be, and Will Smith to tell a story more like how I would imagine me writing it and me dealing with the scenario of slavery. I've written a couple of slavery stories, or a couple of stories that have had that were set in the time of slavery. My first, I'm going to say, I think it was American Gangsters. I've always believed that Harriet Tubman was the bravest human being in American history, and she exhibited it by going back and forth into slavery and freeing people. Regardless of whether, you know, she got aid or not, she was the one that did it, right? She didn't go back with an army. She went back by herself in ways that she risked getting caught and thrown back into slavery and even killed, right? So it's like Brittany Griner saying, yo, I'm going back into Russia. Yo, it's crazy, you know, how they beat you down or whatever, you know, before. So I wrote that, American Gangsters, and she's a short story, and she finds some Africans incarcerated, you know, escaped slavery on the road, and slave catchers is coming, and Harriet Tubman jumps out the bushes like a superhero and saves them. I imagine that's how that happened. It was fun thinking of and finding ways to prove that and justify Harriet Tubman using a pole, or thought of what weapon she would use, you know, and being somebody that worked with, you know, farming tools. I felt that would be a good tool for her to master and not be discovered, right? So that was her weapon, and it's also a good tool to walk around with, like a staff. You know, I think when I think of Kung Fu, the TV show, I don't know if he walked around with a staff, but definitely staff is used in a lot of these old Kung Fu movies. So I gave her that, and I made her a master of martial arts. You know, somebody that didn't have to rely on guns and be in a, you know, wild, wild west. I don't think we had it like that in the East, right? So I gave her a pole, a very good weapon. Then my next one was almost like The Woman King, but this was set in Africa, and they are getting, two sisters are getting traded onto a slave ship to come to America. and they're on the slave ship, and they calculate their overthrow of the ship, the revolt, and they do it magnificently with supreme precision. And the story is they get lost on the ship at sea, and they get discovered by some black pirates, and they go back to the slave dungeon in Ghana and burn that sucker down. And I don't, spare no way. There's no black person that they're going to fight. She goes back in there in the same room that they tried to rape her. She catches the white man in charge of the slave dungeon and murders him, straight slaughters him, and they go through slaughtering. And that's my climactic scene. It's not like in The Woman King, where his climax is built around her killing the black dude that raped her. That's not going to be my story. Even if he was an Arabized black guy in The Woman King, I ain't deal with none of that. Now, if I was to write it all over again, would I have added an Arab element in there? Heck yeah. I just didn't know the role that Arabs played in West Africa prior to the Europeans getting there. But I know now, so if I was to rewrite that story, you better believe it would have been some Mustafas, Ali Babas, and all types of Nabalabas, Arabic names, in there getting slaughtered right along with the Abrahams and the Williams, all them Europeans I was slaughtering would have got it. And they were begging for mercy. I'd be like, please, don't kill me. Slaughter them, I took joy in that. Now, I haven't written a large war rebellion story, with an army slaughtering them, but my pirate story is beginning of a series that I wanted to write. I never get to write these things yet, where the black pirates lead a war at sea and hunt down Christopher Columbus and various other human traffickers on the Atlantic. And that would have, some type of land war on either Hispaniola or another island on the Caribbean, and just bring it to them and bring some joy. My third story set in slavery is the origin story of my killer, Baba, from the Death Pledge and Conjuring Baba and the Black Nun movies. And I also had one comic book with Baba in it, and he's slated to come in more, but comic books are really slow work. You get a lot of them out, but it's not as fast as a movie or a book. It's slow because I work with illustrators that are part-time, and my illustrators, are doing other things. They have other full-time jobs, so they draw on the weekends and in the evenings. So anyway, that's my third story is called Interview with a Monster, and Baba plays a boxer during the time of slavery that won his freedom. And again, this is something that I didn't even know existed when I picked up the pen, right? When I was thinking in my mind, I said, my God, I want to write this guy who's a killer. I know I want him to be Jason and Michael Myers, but who is he? So I said, you know what? He's a boxer, and this guy is knocking white people out legally, knocking them out, punishing them, smiling, laughing, and he uses this mask that he made from like a West African mask, and he's taking them out, and he's called the African King, and it's beautiful. And the story is sort of his fall from grace. He rejects being mandingoed, and he goes to death after fighting a sort of a rebellion or a one-man liberation tactic where he's falsely accused of rape and they try to take him down, and they eventually catch him, and he's lynched and killed and goes to death angry. And so that's my Freddy, well, not Freddy, but that's my Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees. But even with that, there's some rebellion in there. And I really don't have any other slavery stories set in slavery. But I do know the joy of writing a story set in slavery for a black person. It is exhilarating. I enjoy writing Baba so much, I would have made 3 movies with him in it. And if I could have done a pirate movie, I would have. You know, I just didn't feel, you know, people was reading pirate stories and I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean, and that franchise sort of fell off. So I thought pirates would have been bigger than what they are. But the story is there. As things start to turn, I think the sequel for Woman King could be a pirate story. So I'm waiting and laying in the cut. I got my story right up here. Columbus and them is about to get theirs. We're going to rescue the Venus Hottentot. All right? So anyway, I just want to speak a little bit about the joy of writing a story set in slavery for a black person. All right, y'all, out. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. Peace.